Hey, go.
Good morning, guys. I'm Tina Gadini.
And I'm Justin Johnson.
We want to welcome you to Fellowship of Faith. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Woo! First show 2023. I almost said 2022. That's not good.
23.
23.
I like odds. Odd numbers.
Oh, okay. I'm more of an even number guy.
Really?
Yeah. I graduated in high school on an even number and college on an even number, so even all the way.
That's good to know. I don't know how it's good to know, but it's good to know.
Don't really know why that's relevant, but now we know.
I hope you guys had a great Christmas and a very, very happy New Year.
I can't believe it's over already. You know, you say you can't
still
believe.
Up, and it's going to be up for another month.
Oh no, our tree's coming down today. I had to fight with my fiance to keep it up one more week because my family Christmas, my dad's side of the family Christmas was yesterday. I'm like, I can't take down the tree until we actually have our final Christmas. She's like, we got to take it down. I'm like, no, please, one more week.
Okay. Well, okay, if you really want to make an argument, yesterday was Epiphany, so Epiphany I think is the day that the wise men came and saw baby Jesus.
Okay, so that's the...
And it's traditionally like the first day of the Greek Orthodox Christmas. So it is still Christmas season. So you have to keep the tree up at least until Epiphany.
Okay. Well, good to know. I will lock that away for next year. If I could keep it up all year round, I would. I like the lights. I like the happiness.
I got a new tree this year.
Ooh.
And I spent a little bit more than I wanted to.
Okay.
But I realized it's a really good tree, and it has like button settings where you can change the lights.
Oh,
and there's
that's
10
awesome.
different settings. It can be white, it can be colored, it can be pastel.
That's
It can be blinky. It can.
So my mom...
So our tree is going to be up a lot longer
Well, yeah,
than normal.
because you can change the lighting.
It's so much fun.
My mom does the impossible job of taking a 10-foot fake tree and wrapping each individual branch
She
with
was telling
strings
Dave,
like
10,000 lights on.
Yeah, it takes like days for her to finish, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's really sad when that has to come down because it's nice and colorful and it takes a lot of work, but ours is just a fake, pre-lit white light tree, and it's kind of boring, but it's our tree, so we're happy with it.
Yeah. So, New Year's at Fellowship of Faith, what all we have going on? Ouch.
Today is the ministry fair.
Oh, that's cool.
For those who
Ministry's
can't see
starting up next week.
Yep. It's basically everyone gets to tour around what we do on a yearly basis here at FOF. And
semesterly. I think you're kind of on a semester basis.
Semesterly basis.
Yeah.
You get to meet all the groups that are meeting and the things that we get to do. So it's kind of like we called all sorts of things throughout the years, but that is.
So I'm used to 9 a.m. being like Dave teaching Revelation, and of course I have to get here for like the pre-meeting and all that kind of stuff, and I'm always late to that, and I always walk in and like, all right, that's the meeting, we're gonna pray now. I'm like, but I'm like, all right, but I'll be here for Revelation, and it's like 9:05, and Dave's still not teaching Revelation. I'm like, what's going on? Oh, no Revelation today. Glad I woke up an hour early.
I had my alarm set for 7:15 p.m. instead of a.m. So I woke up, it was 8:15, and I'm like panicking because I'm like, my timeline's off, I'm going to be late. Tina's going to be freaking out, I'm not going to be here. Then I walked in and nothing was happening. And we had the ministry fair, so no discipleship. Okay, we're all right.
We're good.
We rely too much on our very flawed cell phones to wake us up in the morning. Usually I have a body clock that wakes me up, but since
body clock?
Yeah, so I
wake
up.
Body clock?
I wake up 15 minutes before my alarm every day. Normally.
Just like your internal rhythm.
But since we haven't done this in 2 weeks.
I'm thinking like body pillow.
No.
And like the body pillow like vibrates.
No, an internal clock.
It's a body pillow who's like another person. Time to wake up.
My bed just shakes. It's like an earthquake waking me up. No, my internal body clock would wake me up. Usually right before my alarm goes off, but since we haven't done this in 2 weeks, my body's like sleep, enjoy, and now
so
here we are.
Got like a minute.
Yes.
And I just want to say, you guys, we have not had our online thing, right, for a few weeks. Maybe it's only been a couple weeks or once, I don't know, but it feels like an eternity.
It's been so long.
And I have to tell you, I really have missed you guys. And when it was like, oh, we're not going to be on, and like they had some Wednesday night or Christmas Eve, and like, oh, I should be on with my people.
I know.
And so I was literally sitting in the front row with my family on Facebook, like commenting with everybody, and I'm like, all of these visitors here probably think that I'm just screwing around, and really, I'm with my people.
I sat up in the booth. My family was here, but I sat in the booth.
You sat up here?
Yeah, it just feels normal. So.
It does. So we're glad you're here.
Yes,
and I went to a basketball game yesterday, high school basketball game, and I saw Gavin Rothfuchs. Did I say that right? And I know you guys are online a lot. And so, Gavin, it was so much fun watching you play basketball.
It's always fun watching people you know play.
Because I didn't know,
sports.
and my daughter's like, "Hey, that's Gavin."
Oh,
Gavin.
Gavin.
All right, we're gonna get started. We'll see you at the end, guys.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Let's stand and sing. I was walking the west side, lost on a lonely road. I was chasing the high line, trying to satisfy my soul. All the lies I believed in left me crying like the rain. Then I saw lightning from heaven, and I'll never be the same. I'm gonna climb a mountain, I'm Well, I'm headed to the place where the rivers flow. Well, I'm headed to the place where the streets are gone. Oh, my soul, this I know. You won't need no money, no, you can't bring your fame. Soon the day is coming when we will see his face. Choirs be singing, saints on bended knee, angels be dancing, we will all be free. And God in all his glory, as far as you can see, it's like every day is Sunday in the land of milk and honey. And honey. Well, I'm headed to the place where the flowers grow. Well, I'm headed to the place with no tombstones. Well, sing my soul till I'm home. You can't bring your money, no, you can't bring your fame, but there is only one name above all names. Choirs be singing, saints on bended knee, angels be dancing, we will all be free. God in all his glory, as far as you can see, it's like every day is Sunday in the land of milk and honey. Milk and honey. So we don't have to wait to the other side to see the day come back to life. No, we don't have to wait till the trumpet sound. You pound me down, you power now. Yeah, we don't have to wait to the other side to see the day come back to life. No, we don't have to wait till the trumpet sound. We'll call it down, you power now. Yeah, what a love in the graveyard. Spring on up, spring on up. Water flowing in the wastelands, let it run, let it run. We're homegrown where it was done. Love flowing where the hay was. Promised land waiting on us. Kingdom come, well, kingdom come. The choirs be singing, saints on bended knee, angels be dancing, we will all be free. God in all his glory, as far as you can see, it's like every day is Sunday in the land of milk and honey. Milk and honey. Milk and honey. Milk and honey.
Happy New Year, FOF. Good to see you. Go ahead and have a seat. Welcome to our first service of 2023. Thank you for coming to worship today. Honestly, I hope it was a great Christmas season, great Advent season here at FOF. I mean, it's one of my favorite times of year. Thanks to the band and all the people around here who helped pull Christmas off. And did you have a good time with it? Was it, yeah, you like Christmas this year? Oh, didn't get what you wanted? There's always next Christmas, all right? My name is Dave Gadini, pastor here on staff. For those of you who don't know me, personally want to say welcome to you and would personally like to say welcome to you afterwards. Come and find me after the service. Would love to meet you and if I can, answer any questions you might have about Fellowship of Faith, what we're doing here, where we're going as a congregation, and what this is all about. Guys, I have so much I want to share with you, so many cool things that are in the works. So let me just start hopping into this. Today we are having something called a ministry fair. And a lot like a job fair or a college fair, it's where we have our major group areas represented out in the coffee house. And if you are looking to make connections here at this church this winter, and the various small groups, discipleship groups, and all other kinds of event kind of things that we have, this is a great day to come and talk to me or other leaders to find out more of what it's about and get connected this winter. On your chairs or on a chair near you, you probably saw this yellow framed card. And what you can do from this card is just simply take a QR code of any of those areas to get more information of what's going on. But let me highlight right now for you just a couple of things that you'll see on here, and then how to take next steps if you're interested. So discipleship groups are what we call small groups here at Fellowship of Faith. They can range anywhere from 6 to 25 people who are gathering together, generally around some life topic or biblical topic, to learn how to just grow in a relationship with Christ together. And we have 14 groups that are meeting this coming winter season, meeting Monday through Friday and even on Sunday at various times and various locales. And we encourage you, snap the picture or go to our adult ministry webpage and get the details on that, or come see me at the table afterwards, after the service today, and I'll happily walk you through any of the groups and tell you more about them. On Wednesday nights, we have a big ministry event that happens here at Fellowship of Faith. I guess I jumped table dinners, but I'll come back, don't worry. Wednesday nights are where various groups meet together in the same locale here at Fellowship of Faith. It starts at 5 p.m. We do dinner together, and if you can make it, fantastic. At 6 p.m., our groups start, go about an hour, including children's ministry and student ministry at the exact same time. 6 or 7 different groups that are meeting on Wednesday nights this season, and those launch January 18th. Wednesday, January 18th. So not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday. Give you a little time to kind of feel the landscape on this and see which might interest you. Great way if you don't know where to start, or if you're a little intimidated going to someone's house because you don't know them. Hey, come check it out right here. Table dinners are monthly gatherings based on your geography. So let's say you've been coming to FOF for a week or a month or even a few years, and you're just looking to meet some people, connect with some people that might also live in your area. You will sign up for a table dinner. And what we will do is, based on your address, is assign you to a host in your neighborhood or area, and people across a multi-generational demographic will meet once a month on a weekend night to just do dinner in a home together and to get to know each other and talk and laugh and pray and maybe even commune together and things like that. It's a great way to get connected and do life in the process. Faith training is something really cool that I want to tell you about today and want to even take a step further. Faith training are daily spiritual practices that we encourage you to do Monday through Friday that tailor in to what we're talking about Sunday. It's often prayer techniques, Bible study readings, devotionals that we might encourage you to, action steps that we're encouraging to make. It's basically a tailored devotional life keyed to FOF for you. Now, who here uses the YouVersion app on their phone? Would you just own that for a minute if you do? Great app, isn't it? Those of you who have it, you like the YouVersion? Does that work well for you? I want to tell you something really, really exciting. FOF is now a content provider for YouVersion. So have you ever gone, yeah, it's really cool. Have you ever gone to YouVersion and searched for one of those Bible study plans? We are now providing Bible study plans for YouVersion, and if you search us, you will hit the FOF Bible study plans, and this is available to the 500 million people around the globe who have downloaded the app. So not only excited on the possible reach of what this will have and the way maybe we can bless churches and Christians and seekers around the globe, but we are now keying our faith training directly into YouVersion. So if you want our faith training plans you can still go to our faith training webpage like normal at fellowshipoffaith.org. Or you can simply go into YouVersion, make Fellowship of Faith your church, and every time one of our plans drops, well, all you have to do is hit, yep, I'll do it. And here today, during the ministry fair, Maya Jurgensen, who's on ministry support staff, is going to be by our faith training table to help any of you who are having, shall we say, the tech support issues that are inevitable in this world. What is YouVersion? How do I download YouVersion? What is a cell phone? All of those kinds of things, Maya is here to help you with, all right? I encourage you, take part in this. Our first plan starts today, and it's keyed to what we're talking about, John chapter 11. Now, two more ministries I want to highlight very briefly. One is our fellowship events. Shar Marchese, a former staff member who is still active here in so many ways, has taken on a ministry of helping just get pure fellowship opportunities, fun times to just kind of get together, fun kind of events for the whole congregation. And she has a whole list at the Welcome Center of ways that you can connect this fall, this winter. You can also find that on our webpage at the adult ministry site as well. And finally, I want to highlight Health and Wellness Ministry. Health and Wellness is this cool ministry led by an RN, or I believe even maybe a nurse practitioner. Her name is Marian Heisel, who attends here, and she's doing blood pressure screening in the back today. But more than that, there's seminars and classes and other events and other things she makes available. Where I'm going with this is if any of these things have struck you today as interesting, that I've just mentioned, you can always go to our website and do your own research. But if it's easier for you, take a few moments after the service today and go to one of the appropriate tables. Ask the questions, grill them, the good, the bad, the ugly. What's this about? When's this meet? What are you going to make me do? Do I have to sing in public if I come? You know, all the weird kind of questions that scare you, all right? And I want to encourage you here at Fellowship of Faith, we encourage you to just try things. By signing up for a group, you are not committing to a group. You are not making some blood oath to a group. By signing up for a group, you're simply saying, hey, could the group leader get in contact with me? Give me some more information. Maybe put me on the email list so when the group meets, I know about it. And then we encourage you simply try it out, see if it's a good fit, and in the process, see what kind of connections you might make that you ordinarily wouldn't have with others who go here. And more importantly, with God himself, because that's fundamentally what all these ministries are about. Does that make sense? All right. Awesome stuff. I want to highlight something for you today, and it's kind of cool. I think we have a slide on this, but one of our members, founding member here at Fellowship of Faith, a man by the name of Pete Goucher. Anyone know Pete? All right. Pete is now a published author. You can find his book on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. He wrote a book called Full Circle, Soliloquies of a Searching Human Heart. It's not about you, but really it is. And what it is it's a collection of musings, poems, devotionals, things that Pete has been compiling over the course of his life, and he has had a pretty interesting life in his walk with God, and even things that have happened here at FOF that made their way into the book. And, check it out. Look it up online and maybe take a risk and not only support one of our own guys here, but maybe let his spiritual journey bless you as well. So let's give a shout out to Pete, because that's pretty cool. All right, I told you I had a lot of good stuff, and I'm almost there through it all. A final couple of housekeeping bits. We are into a new year, and so I'd like to announce this, especially this time of year. But we want to have a personal connection with you. That's in part what the ministry fair and the groups are about. But there's something simple you can do right now, is just please acknowledge that you're here today. We would love to know that you're worshiping with us today, whether you're online or whether you're here in person. And the simple way to do this is just text this number, 855-465-2720. Just text the word "here" to that number. It's a little base touch. And what we do with this is we just get kind of an Excel spreadsheet. It shows us, here's who came, and we pray for you. We just pray for you, and honestly, we just kind of look and smile and go, oh, okay, they were here. Hey, look, they were here. It's cool to know that you're here. We love it when you're here, but we're large enough that on any given Sunday, we can't always make that personal base touch with each of you. This is just a little way that we can keep kind of connections alive. And if we can be praying for you, we've got a team of elders here that are incredible, and they would love to be actively praying for you, even praying with you, if that's something that you would like. And you just text the word prayer to the exact same number. Cool? Make sense? Finally, here at FOF, there are multiple ways to give. If you've come and you're looking to give an offering today, we have 5 ways to give. Now, I want to highlight something very specifically at the start of this year. I'm going to ask you to own this, but who is like an old school offering envelope giver here in the house? Right? I actually am too. It takes way too long, it's way too cumbersome, but there's something about writing the check and stuffing it in the envelope. I just enjoy it myself, so I still do it. Now, have you heard over the past 2 years, companies talk about something called supply chain? And have you heard over the past couple of years, businesses lament we can't get workers? And have you seen over the past couple of years how, while there is a legitimacy to some of that, a lot of others are using it as a really good excuse to just not be on their game? Welcome to the company that's printing our offering envelopes. Here at FOF, one of the ways to give is by dropping an envelope or cash in one of these buckets. And there's envelopes, generic envelopes you can use that are at these stations in the back of the church if you like to give that way. But what we can do for you is print or code your own, it's really cool, your own specialized, personalized set of offering envelopes. I know you've waited for it your whole life, right? Wait no more. You can have them soon here at FOF. But what it does is it simplifies things. You don't have to write your name on it. It has a number on it. It makes our job easier for our offering counters. Well, they are assuring us that the envelopes that we ordered in like the spring of 2021 are on their way. They are assuring us that they are working day and night, 7 days a week. I think they actually assured us they're working 9 days a week, because that's what people say in this time of year. And they say that they hope that they're here in January. Well, I'll believe it when I see it. But in the meantime, for those of you who enjoy giving that way, that's what's going on. And what I would encourage you to do in the meantime is one of 2 things. Just use the generic envelopes that you have in the back, and if you're paying by check, it's coded to you, or just jot your name on the front. Or maybe go on our website, fellowshipoffaith.org, go to the giving webpage, and maybe for a season explore an alternate means, giving online, giving through text, setting up an auto bank transfer and never having to worry about writing the check again. Whatever might do it for you. Hope that helps you out, and we will let you know as soon as those hit. All right, all good? Fantastic. Guys, what I'd encourage you to do is this. Let's kind of do our mid-service stretch. And let's stand up, find someone around you, say hello. If you don't know them, introduce yourself, and then we'll gather back up. All right, should we do this? Let's do it. John chapter 11. Since the school year started for us, in September, we have been going through a gospel, a book, a biography that you will find in the New Testament, written by and named after the man who wrote it, named John. John was the last of Jesus' apostles. He was the last of the living apostles. Sometime, who knows, near the end of his life, when all of the other apostles had already died, been martyred, or called home to Christ, he was the last remaining one. And what do you say when you are the last of those who witnessed Jesus firsthand, who saw his miracles, who followed him, who heard his teachings with their own ears, whose life was transformed by the literal physical touch of Jesus? What do you say? What do you leave behind? What do you communicate when you know that you are the last of an era? This is the Gospel of John. Near the end of his life, this last living apostle wrote a story. He wrote a story about Jesus. In this story is his testimony of what he discovered and experienced, of who Jesus is, what he said, what he did, how Jesus understood himself, his mission, and what he came to do, and what he has come to show us and reveal to us about God. And more significantly, sharing the discovery that all who call on Jesus' name, all who, as John will put it, put their faith in him and their trust in him, their hope in him as the Son of God himself, that there's a transformation of soul and spirit that equates to a new kind of life that never ends. In Jesus' name. And since September, we've been on this journey of hearing and seeing and reading what John has to say. And today we come to John chapter 11. In it, we see the seventh sign. And I know that sounds like a B-rated apocalyptic movie. But what we see is John recording sign number 7, arguably the greatest of them, that he has been talking about and anchoring his story in as he's gone along. Since the beginning of John, he has been showing us or focusing our attention on select miracles or signs that Jesus did. Things like going to a wedding and changing water into wine. That's pretty cool. Things like going up to a man who's panicked and grieving because his child might die. Healing her. Things like walking up to a crippled man, a paralyzed man who for 40 years has wasted away without hope on Slum Row, telling him to get up and walk. Things like Jesus walking himself, but not on ground, on water. Things like taking a few loaves of bread and a few fish and feeding thousands with it. There's a story through John, or a theme, if you will, where John's trying to fix our attention on certain select signs or miracles. He calls them signs because that's what they are, indicators. Indicators by the power and authority of Jesus and what he's doing, of what he's about, and how to understand what God is about as well. And today in John chapter 11, we come to arguably the coolest, the greatest, and the most spectacular of these, raising a brother from the dead. So let me read to you John 11 today. It's longer, so stay with me. But it's really good. Here it is. John chapter 11. Here we go. Now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sister sent word to Jesus, "Lord, the one that you love is sick." When he heard this, Jesus said, "This sickness will not end in death. No, it's for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it." Now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Yet when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. Then he said to his disciples, Let's go back to Judea." "But Rabbi," they said, "a short while ago the Jews tried to stone you, and yet you are going back there?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours of daylight? A man who walks by day will not stumble, for he sees by this world's light. It is when he walks by night that he stumbles, for he has no light." And after he'd said this, he went on to tell them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to wake him up." His disciples replied, "Lord, if he sleeps, he'll get better." But Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant actual natural sleep. So then he told them plainly, "Lazarus is dead. And for your sake, I'm glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him." Then Thomas, also called Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples, Let's go too, that we may die with him." Now, on his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had been already in the tomb for 4 days. Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed home. "Lord," Martha said to Jesus, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now, God will give you whatever you ask." And Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha answered, "I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." To which Jesus said to her, "And let me show this to you. I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die." And then he asks this question, "Do you believe this?" Take a step forward from the story on the page. Do you believe this? Let Jesus' question come to you today. Do you believe this? Say it with me. I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die, and whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? Jesus is making his same invitation to believe something crazy and powerful and filled with hope and long shot. To believe something so contrary to the world as we know it today. And listen to what she answers. "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is to come into the world." And after she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. "The teacher's here," she said, "and is asking for you." When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. And when the Jews who had been with Mary in the house comforting her noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Jesus reached the place where when Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. And Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, see how he loved him? But some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Take away the stone, he said. But Lord, said Martha, Lazarus' sister, by this time, there's a bad odor, for he's been in there 4 days. Then Jesus said, did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up, and here's what he said. Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you have sent me. Now, when he had said this, Jesus called out in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out! And the dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. And Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. Therefore, many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary and had seen what Jesus did put their faith in him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. Then the chief priests and the Pharisees called a meeting of the Sanhedrin. What are we accomplishing? They asked. Here's this man performing many miraculous signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him. And the Romans will come and take away our place and our nation. Then one of them, named Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, spoke up. You know nothing at all. You do not realize that it is better for you that one man die for the people than that the whole nation perish. He did not say this on his own, but as high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the Jewish nation, and not only for that nation, but also for the scattered children of God, to bring them together and make them one. So from that day on, they plotted to take Jesus' life. Therefore, Jesus no longer moved about publicly among the Jews. Instead, he withdrew to a region near the desert, to a village called Ephraim, where he stayed with his disciples. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, many went up from the country to Jerusalem for their cleansing before the Passover. They kept looking for Jesus, and as they stood in the temple area, they asked one another, "What do you think? Isn't he coming to this feast at all?" But the chief priests and Pharisees had given orders that if anyone found out where Jesus was, he should report it, so that they might arrest him. It's a cool story, isn't it? This is this amazing story filled with so much about how Jesus relates to people, about how God works, about Jesus' authority over death itself, about the nature of what God is looking to do in this world and how people respond to it. But there's one thing in this story that I want to pause on. I want to especially take time to highlight today. And my bet is as I read the story, you just kind of skipped right by. Let me put it on the screen. It's this line right here. Wherein hearing the news, on coming to the tomb, On seeing the people crying and wailing in the face of death, it says that Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to that grave. It says it was a stone, or a cave with a stone laid across it. It's where he said, take away the stone. I want to drill down into this phrase, and I want to drill down into something in particular. This one little line, this one little word packet. Deeply moved. Jesus is there in the face of suffering, and he's deeply moved. He's there in the face of grief, and he's deeply moved. He's there in the face of death, and Jesus is deeply moved. There's something that brings me immense comfort, that God is deeply moved by the things that affect us. That God's heart breaks in ways as ours do. I want to talk to you about this phrase, deeply moved. Because what does it mean to actually be deeply moved? By nature of the phrase, it's kind of generic, isn't it? And my suspicion is we've seen people deeply moved in our lives in all kinds of ways. Have you ever been to a sporting event? Have you ever been to a concert? Have you ever been to some kind of big celebration? Have you ever been to a wedding and you were happy that they were getting married? Have you ever seen people deeply moved at times like that? What does it look like? Clapping, cheering, celebrating, singing. Have you ever had those moments where you're bursting out of your own skin with joy and excitement and just enthusiasm in the spirit of the room, or maybe the Spirit of God who's moving upon you? Sometimes we see deeply moved look like that. Something tells me that that's not what this is getting at here. Many of you have memorized the shortest verse in the Bible. And if not, you're going to memorize it today. Ready? Jesus wept. Isn't that great? I remember growing up in like Christian grade school and we had to memorize Bible passages, and when they gave you the option to choose your own, do you know what it always was? Jesus wept. Jesus wept. Jesus is affected by death too, the loss of his friend, the sympathy and empathy for broken people suffering so deeply, the death of someone they love. Jesus wept. What does it mean to be deeply moved? Is it a way of expressing that? That Jesus wept, and then he says, bring me to the tomb. And he comes to the tomb, and the tears start welling up again. It certainly makes sense, doesn't it? But I'd like to suggest to you another way to think about what it means that Jesus was deeply moved that way. Something that people who study John and write about John comment on left and right. See, this phrase deeply moved finds its roots back in the King James Bible. And the King James Bible really sets the course for everything in the English language in terms of Bible translation. And it is a good translation. But they choose words and they choose phrases that kind of embed themselves in translators' psyches that continue on. And there's a certain genericism to the term that I think they kind of continue to go with. As an aside, I didn't know if I was going to share this, but I just have to, because the next line after this verse is totally worth sharing, both in English and from the King James. That was a slip, both in normal English and in King James. All right, it's John 11:38. Let me read the next line in the NIV. All right, here it is. So, but Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man, by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there 4 days. Do you know how the King James words this? It's so fantastic. And I'll say the first line the same in the NIV. Well, yeah, and I'll just get to the key line. But Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man, by this time he stinketh. Isn't that fantastic? I encourage you to use that line. The next time you give someone a breath mint or a piece of gum, and they're kind of resisting, no, by this time your breath stinketh. That 12-year-old boy who lives in your house who refuses to take a shower. Get in the tub. By this time you stinketh. There is a lot of traction in this phrase. But here's Jesus at the tomb of a man who's clearly dead. Not kind of dead, not sort of dead, rotten away for 4 days. Dead. And he's deeply moved. There's something commentators will talk about in this phrase, the way the language underneath gets translated to deeply moved, and they point to some parallels. They'll point you to classical Greek. Well, they'll talk about how this word that gets translated deeply moved is the same word that in classical Greek they would use to describe when a horse would snort. Right? Which is kind of interesting in its own right. But let me add a layer, especially in war or in a race. For humans, it seems to follow this kind of trajectory. A word packet used to describe people who are angry, outraged, fury, a contempt that says, I'm not going to take it anymore. And they do something about it. You see it used that way in the other Gospels in the Bible. There's a story in Matthew chapter 9 where Jesus heals 2 blind men. And everyone is spreading the word about Jesus, and he's kind of getting fed up about it. And he goes and he heals these 2 blind men, and he does it in private. And then he warns them. It says he gives them a stern warning not to tell anyone about it. It's the exact same word phrase. Jesus was deeply moved and warned them. Don't tell anyone. Don't do it. I always wondered how Christian evangelism would work for the better if we just told people not to do it, and then you go, oh, you're not going to tell me what to do. The one I like even more even ties into the story. But you won't find the details there. You'll find the details in Mark. Did you catch earlier at the beginning of the story in John chapter 11 how the man who died, his name is Lazarus, and he has 2 sisters, Mary and Martha, and Jesus was close with them all, right? And did you catch that one weird little thing about Mary? How there was this episode or a little bit earlier where she took some expensive perfume and broke it and poured it on Jesus' feet and then literally wiped it with her hair, which I'm assuming was still attached to her head, right? It's kind of weird, isn't it? But at the same time, there's something that there's something cool maybe in there. When you read the story in Mark or the other Gospels, there's some details that John just doesn't take the time to focus on. And the detail that's pertinent to this phrase is this: that when the disciples witness what Mary does to Jesus by taking this expensive perfume that's worth 9 months' wages. I mean, wrap your mind around this. This bottle of nard, this perfume that's worth 9 months' wages. How much do you make a year? Carve it into 9. That's some serious cash. And she breaks the bottle to pour it on Jesus' feet. And the disciples witness this, and you know what they do? They get mad. You know what they say? What a waste! This money could have been used in better ways to help maybe the poor. Oh, and does that light Jesus up and tick him off? But the phrase in question I want to point you to is this. It says that the disciples rebuked her harshly. That's how the NIV will read. The disciples rebuked her harshly. It's the exact same packet. It's the exact same word phrase. What I want to suggest to you is to read this passage, to read this event in a way different than I think you're inclined to. If you were there with John witnessing it, what would you see? If you were a director making a movie about it, how would you put this into film? Most show a sympathetic, compassionate, broken Jesus weeping. Well, we certainly saw that Jesus wept. And maybe. But the language seems to express something different. That Jesus is there at the tomb, and he's mad. He's angry. He's fed up, and he's not going to take it anymore. Mad at who? Angry at who? Fed up with who? Mary and Martha and the people grieving? That doesn't make much sense. That doesn't seem to fit the flow of the story. No, mad about something else. Transport yourself back there for a moment. Put yourself at the scene. Unlike a Midwest funeral that lasts maybe a couple hours or only a day, here we have family gathered, friends gathered, the community gathered, because one of their own has died. And for days, 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, the people are gathered. The people are crying. The people are wailing. The people are comforting their loved one. And here they are at the grave. Imagine yourself. Transport yourself there. Put yourself in that place. Imagine Jesus seeing the chaos that's ensuing, with people wailing and breaking and crying, standing there in front of this tomb, this symbol of the victory of death, the inevitability of death, the futility of life because of death. And he's angry because death is not going to torture, torment, and terrorize my people anymore. He's fed up. He's moved. And he's going to do something about it. And imagine Jesus standing there in the middle of it all, with the brokenness and resignation and suffering of the people around him, shouting out to death in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" And death having no choice but to bow before him. Because what John wants you to see, the story that he's telling, is that this Jesus is no ordinary man, that in this Jesus there is the power and authority even over death itself, that God has come. And when God comes on the scene, even death goes fleeing, because that is who God is. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full, Jesus says, and it ain't just words. One commentator, a guy named Gary Burge, great man, read anything you can by him. He's actually come and spoken here at FOF in the past. He writes this: God's people possess knowledge of life. They should possess a faith that claims victory at the grave, but here they stand overcome in seeming defeat. And here stands the one in whom victory, life, and resurrection are powerful realities. Jesus is angry at death itself and the devastation it brings. Jesus is mad when death comes your way. Jesus is mad when death infects your family. God is mad when it seems like he is passively standing by, staying away and letting life follow its course. It moves him deeply. Do not think that God is disinterested in your suffering and grief. No, God is moved, and John wants us to see it. And Jesus that day does something about it. This is a window to the hope of the life that Jesus talks about, the life that Jesus brings. to everyone who puts their hope, trust, and faith in him as someone more than just a man. There's something else I'd like to point out in this story as well. There were many who saw this sign. And I mean, just imagine witnessing something like that. And it led them to take that step to put their faith in him. But there were many who went the opposite way. And because of it, wanted to kill him. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that strange? And isn't it ironic that if someone actually raises a dead person, you think you can kill him? I mean, there's so many levels here. But it reveals something to me. And we've seen it throughout John in how people respond. That sometimes no matter what a person sees, no matter what a person hears, no matter what a person witnesses, no matter what a person experiences, no matter how God works in their life, they just simply refuse to believe and gnash their teeth and decide to go another way or choose a cold indifference, apathy, or silent contempt. I know I'm speaking to some of you here today who have struggled with someone that you love, a spouse, a child, a friend, a parent, someone that you pray for, and it doesn't seem to do anything. Someone that you pull for, you witness to, you invite. Someone who has seen the work of God in their life, someone who has heard it and knows it, someone who's been brought up in it. And no matter what happens, everything seems to be met with a sense of indifference or apathy or hostility to the message you bring. And you don't know what to do, because you stand as powerless before the situation as you do before death itself. I want to speak to you today, and I want to encourage you in this. Do not stop hoping. Do not stop praying. Because God is the one who can raise the dead, the physical and the spiritual too. I want to share a story with you, and then we'll share an even cooler one. How many of you remember Sandy Ward? Several of you who are in the room. She was one of our founding members here at Fellowship of Faith. Died in 2012. And I would call Sandy a church widow. Not because she was a widow, but because when it came to her faith life and her church involvement, she effectively was. She'd been married to this man named Tom, up to the day she died, for over 40 years. He was a Vietnam vet, saw some ugly things. He was cynical and angry. Tom, later in his life, was afflicted by Parkinson's disease. For years, no, decade or more, decades, confined to a wheelchair. And it made him more angry, bitter, filled with hate and contempt, with nowhere to direct it, so it just consumed his life. And Sandy loved that man. She prayed for that man. She invited and shared. She wept in her heart over her husband, who disbelieved God because he hated the Lord. She would be ridiculed by him. She would get the rolling of the eyes. She would get the write-off. It was cold. It was hard. This woman took abuse. No, not physical. But that day-to-day emotional erosion that happens with someone who holds you because of your beliefs in contempt, scoffs and laughs and ridicules. But I'll tell you this. For over 40 years, she never stopped praying for her husband. Oh, there were dark nights of the soul. Oh, there were dark seasons too, I'm sure. But God would bring her back again. It was shortly before Sandy died that a bunch of people from this church went over to her house. Not the first time, not the only time. But they went there to help them fix some things and clean some things up. Nancy was a hoarder. Sandy, I said Nancy. Sandy was a hoarder. I don't know why, but something melted a little in Tom that day. Tom actually started coming to church. He'd start smiling when he looked at you. Instead of trying to rush out the door immediately, he would spend some time to talk and greet you. Instead of standing over in a corner in his wheelchair, or sitting, I should say, just kind of stay away from me. Little perceptible things without any, you know what I mean? This went on for several months, and we had a baptism service going on. And we invited anyone who wanted to be baptized to come forward. And by this point, something started to swell in Tom's life. And before the words were out of my mouth, he was trying to push himself in his wheelchair down the aisle. He grabbed the mic. He shared to the congregation that, guys, what you did for me meant the world, and what you did for my wife meant the world. And I've finally come to see Jesus as my Lord and my Savior. Tom was not miraculously healed. He continued to be in that wheelchair. Tom's quality of life did not improve. No, it decreased, and he went to a crappy nursing home. And he died in that place. But Tom's quality of life, no, it changed drastically. Never stop hoping for the spiritual dead person in your life. I want to share one more story with you today. Not me, but from the person's own lips. I'm going to invite an amazing woman here from Fellowship of Faith to come up. Her name is Michelle. She's going to tell you firsthand about her own experience with this. Would you welcome her with me today?
Thank you. So my dad, he's pictured here, that's Dave. He was a kind man, he was a loving man, but beneath all that, he was also a very stubborn and opinionated man. He was someone that my husband and I kind of tasked ourselves with, like, all right, we're gonna show him Jesus. We're gonna break him down. We're gonna make him see this, because really he did not grow up with any of that. My grandma, like his family, no one was really believers. I never grew up in the church, so this was kind of all new territory for us. So we tasked ourselves with this. Well, it wasn't going well. And in 2018, our family suffered a tremendous amount of loss and was really hurting. And it started in February when we lost my stepmom to a rare form of cancer. That broke my dad. At that point, he really thought that God hated him. He really saw no reason to believe something because he felt like he was being punished. He lost the love of his life. After she passed, his health started taking a really hard toll. He had already suffered a massive heart attack in like 2012-ish and had already had and beaten cancer himself. But in the months after my stepmom died, it got worse. We noticed he was getting really sick, and we started taking him to doctor's appointments and stuff. And I remember really distinctively, it was Thanksgiving. He was supposed to come to my house and celebrate with us, but he just was not well enough to do that. And instead, my husband and my kids, we all went to see him that Sunday after. And he was pretty much bedridden at this point, and we're all playing around, hanging out at the house, and my husband, Ben, jokingly goes, all right, I'm gonna start putting up your Christmas decorations. And my dad, with the most anger and hatred he could have in his voice, which was pretty raspy at this point because of his cancer, he said, deadpanned my husband and said, you put up one effing Christmas decoration, and I'm going to lose my mind. Because why the hell should I celebrate someone that doesn't give a damn about me? Like, it was hard. And I remember Ben looking right at me. I could see the sadness in his eyes. We thought we'd lost him. We'd lost our opportunity. There was no way we're going to be able to save this man. There was no way we were going to be able to tell him that, hey, Jesus actually really loves you. So we went about our day, and you fast forward a couple weeks later, and my dad lands in the hospital. He had emergency surgery to remove a lot of fluid around his heart. He was in the ICU for a couple of days, and as he started to come out of it, coming out of sedation, you get kind of wacky. And he was saying some goofy things, and he was starting to get really agitated. And for me, I needed to step back. I needed to take a break because it was just very overwhelming for me. So I left the room. We had a lot of family with us too. At some point, they also kind of stepped back, leaving just my dad and my husband, Ben, in the room together. So I walked away for about 10 minutes or so. I come back, and I see my husband, like, scurrying from my dad's room. And he busts out of the ICU. And I'm like, oh gosh, this can't be good. Like, why else are you running from a room like that? So I follow after him, and I see him just collapse in a chair and put his head in his hands. And I knelt down by him, I look at him, and I say, what's going on? And with tears in his eyes, just completely sobbing, he goes, I just prayed with your dad. I was like, what? So we get to talking, and it turns out, like, my dad's saying kind of wacky stuff. He's like, do you think someone would, like, do a full body transplant with me so that I could, like, live longer? And, kind of talking through all these crazy things about how he could still be here. Because he looked at Ben and said, how do you choose living forever or your family? And my husband, who will tell you he does not know how the words came out, but the words poured out of him, he looked right at my dad and said, I don't believe I have to make that choice because of God. I believe that, the pain and the anger and the sadness that you're feeling was never part of God's plan. But the gift he gives us of love and everything that comes with that is why I believe I will see you in heaven, why I will see Anne, and why you can see us in heaven. And my dad agreed with it. And they prayed. And it wasn't long after that, he told Ben that he wanted to talk more about it later. And unfortunately, a nurse had come into the room, and that's when my husband had kind of scurried off. And we never got to finish that conversation. My dad went to a hospice care room not long after that moment. And we were all there. It was me and my husband, my sister, Susie, and my two stepsisters, Megan and Maureen. My dad's sister, my aunt, had also happened to be there. We were just talking and giggling and laughing and smiling. And, I got to tell him one more time about how God loves him. And he's like, I know. And it was kind of like, a typical dad response, which was really wonderful for me. And it was starting to near the end of the night. And by end of the night, I mean, 8 o'clock, he was like, all right, you guys can go now. And we're like, well, no, we want to hang out. And he's like, no, you need to go. So we all kind of ushered out. I was the last one to say goodbye. I gave him a kiss, and I got to hear I love you. And then the next morning at about 7:30, I received a call from the hospital that he had passed. We don't know exactly when, but oh my gosh, never give up. Just witness to people. Honestly, just being with him knowing our involvement, we didn't really throw the Bible at him. We weren't throwing Jesus at him. We were just being with him. We were telling him about all the things that we do with our church family and things like that. And it obviously stirred something in him that we never knew did. it totally was amazing, and I cannot say it enough. Like, don't lose hope. It's real and it's there. And ironically enough, we actually lost my grandma that same day, my dad's mom. So it was kind of a double whammy for us. But man, my dad's in heaven, and there's nothing greater than the peace of that after receiving just like a devastating phone call.
Your job right now may be to endure the eye rolls, scoffing, the resistance. Never lose hope. And let God do his work. This past week, I had 2 funerals, maybe 1.5, but stood by 2 separate gravesides. And we did something, and I'd like to do it with you. It's better on your feet. If you don't mind, please stand. There's something we say here occasionally at FOF. There's a lot of good in it, a lot of history in it, and something that's shared by a lot of other churches, called the Apostles' Creed. You ever hear of this? If not, it's okay. But it's an ancient statement of faith. Goes back arguably to the 2nd century AD. It's something that Christians would say, particularly when they were baptized, with the understanding that on their baptism they were transferring from death to life, and that God was beginning the process of the new life in Him. It struck me as we were standing there at this cemetery in Cary and another in Lake Geneva, next to a coffin and a hole in the ground, that it's something more than that. Oh, it's a statement of faith. But a statement of faith is not just a recitation of what I believe so I make sure I understand it correctly. A statement of faith is not just like, oh, okay, here's the right things I got to kind of keep repeating so I stay spot on. No, it's something that comes from a spirit of being deeply moved. Deeply moved like Jesus was next to that tomb. Deeply moved in the face of death. Broken and weeping, but angry. But an anger that snorts like a horse. An anger that says in defiance to death, you may have me now. But because this person is in Christ, you do not have them forever. Think about that as you say it today. Think about what these words are saying, and think about it through the lens. Like Jesus would have said at that tomb when he cried, Lazarus, come out. Think about it as a statement of standing in Jesus' name in the face of death itself, going, you have no power on me. Think about it that way, and I think you'll start to discover just a little bit more of what these ancient things are supposed to be. For those of you who have suffered, for those of you who are grieving, for those of you who fear death, I invite you to proclaim this with me. I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. He descended into hell. But the third day he rose again from the dead. He ascended into heaven and sits at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. From thence he will come to judge the living and the dead. And I believe in the Holy Spirit, the holy Christian church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and the life of the age to come. Amen.
I've been trying to make sense. It's all that I feel. Holding on for life to the only thing that's real. Only scratch the surface. I barely had a taste, but just a glimpse draws my heart to change. And one side of you lays my sin to waste. I don't need to see everything, just more of you. Take it all away. Magnify no other name. Open up my eyes to you. Take it all away. Magnify no other name. Open up my eyes to you. My sight is incomplete, and it made you look small. I've been staring at my problems for way too long. Realign where my hope is set. Tell you all that's left. And just a glimpse draws my heart to change. And one side of you lays my sin to waste. I don't need to see everything, just more of you. Take it all away. Magnify no other name. Open up my eyes to you. Take it all away. Magnify no other name. Open up my eyes to you. God, be greater than the worries in my life. Be stronger than the weakness in my mind. Be louder. Let your glory come alive. Be magnified. God, be greater than the worries in my life. Be stronger than the weakness in my mind. Be louder. Let your glory come alive. Be magnified. Be magnified. Take it all away. Magnify no other name. Open up my eyes to you. Take it all away. Magnify no other name. Open up my eyes to you. To you.
Listen to these words from Psalm 116. I love the Lord, for he heard my voice. He heard my cry for mercy, because he turned his ear to me. I will call on him as long as I live. The cords of death entangled me. The anguish of the grave came upon me. I was overcome by trouble and sorrow. Then I called on the name of the Lord. Lord, save me. The Lord is gracious and righteous. Our God is full of compassion. The Lord protects the simple-hearted. When I was in great need, he saved me. Be at rest once more, O my soul, for the Lord has been good to you. For you, O Lord, have delivered my soul from death, my eyes from tears, my feet from stumbling, that I may walk before the Lord in the land of the living. And may you walk in his name. May you know his power and authority even over death. May it fill you with hope in the face of grief. May it well in you trust in his name, and may he bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he look upon you with favor. May he give you peace. May the joy of the Lord be your strength. May you be deeply moved by it. And may you proclaim your hope and joy even in the face of death. In Jesus' name.
I can see the clouds roll in. I can feel the wind, they try to shake me. I will not be moved. My feet are on the rock. I can feel the waters rise. I can hear the howling lies that haunt me. You won't hold me now. My feet are on the rock. A solid rock I stand, all of the ground is sinking sand. So stop your feet and clap your hands, our feet are on the rock. I'm past a solid rock I stand, all of the ground is sinking sand. So stop your feet and clap your hands, our feet are on the rock. I'm past a solid rock I stand, all of the ground is sinking sand. So stop your feet and clap your hands, our feet are on the rock. Hope about to break, I will cling to your unchanging grace. Let the waters come and the earth give way. I'll be dancing in the rain. When I feel my hope about to break, I will cling to your unchanging grace. Let the waters come and the earth give way. I'll be dancing in the rain. My feet are on the right. Ooh, my feet are on the right. Ooh, my feet are on the right. Praise be to God.
Welcome back, everybody.
That was a long service.
It was.
There was a lot of words there.
It's a lot to unpack. Very powerful words, but lots of them. The stories were very cool. The Sandy Ward stories and the story about Michelle's dad. Very powerful.
Earlier in the week, Dave's like, hey, do you have any pictures of my dad? So I sent him a bunch of pictures that I have. Because he's going to use it for the sermon. There were no pictures of Dave's dad. So there's a cool story, I guess, with Dave's dad. Hopefully.
I guess so. Maybe he'll come say it next time. I think the whole story about believing in the power of God, the power of Christ, even when those who don't believe in them, is still there. I think I think everyone struggles with that in some way, shape, or form. You know, my fiance does not believe the same things I do when it comes to religion in general. She just never grew up in it, so it's not something that she thought about. Now, all she learned about Christianity was the public persona of Christianity, the persecution of people and that kind of thing. So that's her idea of what we believe in, and it's a struggle for me because obviously I know that that's not true, and I have all these things that I would like to show her, but something I've come to terms with is I cannot.
Don't ever give up.
Exactly. Don't give up, and I can't force.
Yeah.
Right. So
something that's neat about the story.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but so Lazarus is dead. He's like dead.
Yep.
And Jesus is talking to his sister, one of the M's, Martha.
Martha. Yep.
And he's like, I'm the resurrection of the life. Do you believe this? And Martha's like, yes, of course I believe this. And Jesus is like, no. Those who die in me will live again. Do you believe this? And Martha's like, yes, I do. And so then Jesus raises Lazarus. And so it wasn't necessarily Lazarus's belief. It was the sister's belief. I'm like, how does that work? You know, I'm doing like a daily reading through the Bible in the year thing, and we've been reading Job. And in the beginning of Job is a righteous man, and his kids would go out and they would party all weekend. And then the next day, Job would offer sacrifices for his kids.
Okay.
And that's how Job was a righteous man, and his family was all good. I'm like, that's not necessarily the kids. That's what Job's doing.
Right.
And so there's something going on that it's like, don't ever give up, because what you do, what you believe, matters for those around you and those people that we love.
Right. It's almost like kind of a beacon in a way. Like we believe that God is the way, the truth, and the life, right? And we as Christians are the beacon to that way. And we can lead them to that path, but we cannot. You can lead a horse to water, we can't force it to drink, that kind of thing. We can't force people to follow that path, but we can always be there as a representation of, or the best representation as we can be, as what God is trying to say, and his truth.
Yeah. This was a good one today.
It was good, very good.
So Dave had a week off.
Yep.
Right. I love it when he comes back and he's like, oh, I'm refreshed. And then, I feel like I thought the service today was really, really long, and there were points I'm like, all right, enough words, get to the point. So I feel like Dave took like 2 weeks of words and put them all in 1 week.
He was excited. He wanted to.
And he was really good.
Get it all out there.
I don't mean to complain, but
there's times where he does. It seems like he repeats the point because he's trying to drive it home, and he wants you to understand what he's getting at.
And people certainly hear things from different perspectives, and I know he's always trying to click all of those. And
I think, especially with what's happened this past week in society, like the Damar Hamlin thing for the NFL.
Is that the football player?
The football player, and other things that, there's other people in the public's eye that
I'm pretty sure that Dave has no idea about the football player.
Probably not, but in this regard, for what we experienced and the outpour of support and love and prayers that we've seen from athletes and people who are in the public's eye, you don't necessarily think of. I saw a man pray on live TV. On ESPN, he prayed right out loud, which is just, you don't see.
Like one of the anchors?
One of the analysts on ESPN prayed out loud for Damar Hamlin.
Wow, I didn't see that.
And it was awesome. It was, just show you the power that prayer can bring and that belief can bring. It gave me goosebumps just listening to him pray. Yeah. Just be so open about it and so vulnerable. Just I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna pray right out loud, and it was awesome. So I think her sermon hits home because of what we experienced. At least for me, because I'm a huge sports fan, and I'm a bigger football fan, and watching that happen live and following the story, it's just, it's insane. So
that's cool.
Very cool bookends to the week, I think.
I'm going to shift gears.
Okay, let's shift.
21.6 The Net listeners, woo-hoo! We're glad you're with us.
Thank you for joining in another year of listening to us. We're so happy you could lend your time on a Sunday or other whatever day. I think it's a Sunday.
Yeah.
All around the world.
Except for when all around the world.
Well, see, we're around the world, so it may not be a Sunday anymore. It depends on the time zones.
Interesting.
Yeah, so whatever day you're listening to us on.
We're just glad you're listening.
We're just glad you're here.
I'm excited about this YouVersion thing.
I
so
know.
this Bible app. Do you guys have this Bible app? I'll show you on my phone.
I got it.
It looks like right there. That's not clear at all. Sorry, but it's basically, it says Bible, and it's called YouVersion, and they offer like probably 200 different translations of the Bible that you can read through. They have offer plans, all this kind of stuff, and we've been trying to get on their platform for a long, long time.
Right.
And they're like, no, you have to be approved. You have to, like, all these hoops you have to jump through. They got to, verify that you're not crazy people.
Right.
And we've been trying this for a long, long time, and we finally have gotten approved to be a provider, content.
That's so cool.
Content provider.
That is so cool.
And so, in the past, how we've gotten like these bookmarks, like the reading plan.
Yeah.
This is what's going to be now. It's all electronic.
That's awesome.
And it's still going to be on like an FOF website.
An FOF Plus or
Something like that, or faith training. Faith training. But the plans are going to be on YouVersion. Have you done any of the plans?
Not yet, but
Okay, so
now
it's
that I
really
know
cool.
it's there.
You sign up for it, and it's just like, all right, day 1, here's your little devotion, here's your reading. Day 2, here's your devotion, here's your reading.
That's awesome.
And
That's very cool.
I'm very excited for it. And the plans are going to be 5 days long.
Okay.
Because doing it 7 days a week is hard.
Yeah, so
I'm doing
it's a
one
lot.
that's like a read through the Bible in a year. I think I mentioned that already. And there's no days off.
No.
And you get behind, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then it's hard to make it up. Because I did the same thing. I didn't quite finish it, unfortunately. I had to redo it, but
Yeah.
I was good. But it takes a lot. It's
Yeah.
just a lot of reading.
Yeah.
It's a lot of reading, so.
So, all right, that's good. Start, hesitate. Oh, this is funny. I was just kind of thinking about this. Like we started, and we're like, are we on? Are we on? And we're kind of like hesitating. And I thought, that's kind of how I'm going into 2023. Like, how's it going to be?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't want to take, we're just testing the waters
we're
here.
We're just going to go in slowly.
What's going to happen this year?
Last couple of years.
Yeah,
Woo!
the 2020 so far has had some very catastrophic things happen. So let's see what 2023 has to bring. Let's hope we maybe start to turn things around.
Good time to get into Bible plans.
Yes, definitely. To invite God into your life to help you through what waters are ahead.
Yeah. And along with that, invite us to participate with you into your life, because we have prayer. What's the number? Pray to
855-465-2720.
Yeah,
if
you
you
can
text
just-
prayer to that number, a little prompt will pop up on your screen. You click that prompt. It'll ask, how can we be praying to you? And that will go directly to one of our elders. It could go to me. It could go to one of the other 8 or 9 of us now.
There's a bunch of people.
Yeah, a bunch.
Yeah.
And we all reach out. We'll reach out if you that's what you would like, and we can pray
We
along
don't
with
speak
you.
in
We can-
tongues when we reach out.
Blah,
Blah, blah,
blah,
praying for you.
blah,
Blah, blah.
But someone will get in contact with you if that's what you want, and we will pray alongside you with whatever you're going through. You don't have to do it alone, because there's a litany of prayer warriors in this church.
And even if you guys are like 100% watching online, you are not alone.
Nope.
We're still
there.
We are still for you guys. You're not watching TV. We're worshiping with you, and we are a
Yes.
church together. And that's what I think makes this really, really
Definitely.
cool.
We're a big community, no matter if you're
Yes.
here physically or if you're in Africa
Yep.
somewhere. We are all here
Or
together.
Nebraska.
Or same thing. A whole different world out
We have
out there.
people watching from Costa Rica today. I mean,
Which
there are
is very-
people who are
but
on like a
still,
mission trip, but they're in Costa
That's
Rica.
awesome.
And they,
a whole
they still
family
log
on a
on.
mission
It's
trip.
Cool.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Saw someone from Arizona was watching. She tunes in quite often. So very cool to see.
What?
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 You were going to say something.
I don't know what it's going to say. I think we're going to wrap it up.
Okay. First show, done.
Woo!
Woohoo!
2023!
Woo, woo, woo!
Knock my glasses off.
All right, now it's
Outta
definitely
here.
time to go.
All right, definitely time to go. We're so glad that you tuned in with us. We'll see you guys next
Yeah,
week.
take care. Have a great week. Bye. Bye-bye.
Are we off?
Okay, bye.